The day the Shen family announced they had found their biological daughter who had been lost for 18 years, the entire upper-class circle of Xinglong City was shaken. The socialites who had long considered me an eyesore eagerly opened bets to see what kind of mess I, Shen Wanqing, would make. Some said I would cry pitifully, crawl on the ground, and hug Madame Shen's legs begging for mercy. Others guessed I would go on a hunger strike and threaten to bang my head against the wall to force this wealthy family to leave me a spot. But unfortunately for them, they lost entirely. Less than 20 minutes after the DNA test results were placed on the living room tea table, I had already joyfully zipped up 3 gigantic suitcases. Clothes, bags, shoes, things I bought with my own savings, were all neatly packed. I slipped into my most comfortable pair of flats, took a deep breath, and with a smile as radiant as spring peach blossoms, walked downstairs to stand before Madame Shen and Old Master Shen, who were still petrified. Mom, oh wait, Madame Shen, I've called a moving truck, I smiled brightly, giving my suitcase a gentle push. I haven't touched a single cent of this month's allowance, so please keep it to buy some Lingji mushrooms for your health. Your biological daughter has suffered a lot. When you bring her home, remember to tidy up the south-facing room with the large balcony, she will definitely love it. I'll take my leave now. Saying that, I calmly turned around, dragging my 3 clattering suitcases through the gold-gilded carved wooden doors, leaving behind the wide-eyed, slack-jawed stares of the Shen family's servants and relatives. They had prepared a whole stomach full of comforting, pitying, yet mocking and disdainful words, but ultimately choked on them thanks to my jackpot-winning-like ecstatic attitude, unable to squeeze out a single syllable. Leaving the most luxurious high-end villa area of Xinglong, I stretched and breathed in the air of freedom. 18 years of wearing the shell of a wealthy heiress, having to learn how to smile without showing teeth, walk without making a sound, and cut a single piece of steak into 8 tiny pieces, had truly drained the energy of someone with a soul that loved laziness like me. With a substantial amount of savings, squeezed from the bonuses I received for perfectly playing the role of a flawless heiress, I caught a cab straight to the old town in Monon, Xinglong City. Unlike the bustling downtown area, where glass financial towers reflected the blinding light of money, Xinglong Old Town had a slow, peaceful pace, brimming with the warmth of everyday life. Here, there was the clicking sound of bicycles, the sweet and fragrant smell of roasted chestnuts, and the crisp sound of chopping blocks from the alleyways. I rented a small space right at the corner of an intersection shaded by plane trees, decorated it myself, and hung up a small wooden sign lined with warm neon lights, Crescent Moon Nail Salon. That's right, I decided to open a nail salon, uncaring for power struggles and unenthusiastic about wealthy family drama. From now on, Shen Wanqing's only goal is to sleep until I naturally wake up, count small change every day, and peacefully be a lazy, leisurely boss enjoying the career of lying flat. During the first few days of opening, there weren't many customers, but I didn't let that bother me. Until one midweek morning, Auntie Wang, who sold dumplings at the end of the alley, timidly stepped into the shop. Auntie Wang was the loudest person in the neighborhood, usually proudly boasting about how strictly she managed her family's finances, to the point her husband couldn't hide a single penny in a secret stash. Today, rubbing her calloused hands, she awkwardly smiled and asked me to trim her cuticles and file her nails, which were cracked from kneading too much dough. Boss Shen, clean them up nicely for me. This afternoon I have to go to a wedding banquet for Mrs. Li's daughter on East Street. I can't let people laugh at me, Auntie Wang chattered nonstop. That old man of mine? Just this morning I emptied his pockets and dug out 3 yuan he hid under his shoe insoles. Trying to fool me? Not a chance. I smiled warmly, poured her a warm cup of herbal tea, and pulled up a low stool to sit down. Don't worry, Auntie. With my skills, I guarantee you'll be the standout at the banquet. I gently soaked her hands in a bowl of warm water, dropped in a few dried rose petals, dried them with a soft cotton towel, and picked up a shiny stainless steel cuticle nipper. The exact moment the sharp tip of the nipper gently touched the rough cuticle around Auntie Wang's nail, a jolt of electricity sparked, running straight from my fingertips into my brain. My whole body gave a slight twitch, and the scene of the Crescent Moon nail salon vanished from my eyes. In a mere 10 seconds, a video as clear as a movie played in my mind. I saw Auntie Wang standing sneakily in her bedroom, looking around. Then she reached into her waistband, pulled out 2 crisp red 100 yuan notes, carefully rolled them up, and stuffed them right into her husband's unwashed, holey woolen sock lying in the corner of the bed. As she stuffed it in, she muttered, "Hiding it here is the safest. This place stinks terribly, even if beaten to death, that old man would never wash his own socks, let alone suspect I'd hide money in his own stuff. I'll use this money to play mahjong at the end of the month." Hee hee. The video vanished, and my mind returned to reality. The nipper in my hand was still hovering over Auntie Wang's cuticle. I was stunned for 5 seconds, blinking at the auntie who was still going on about her husband managing skills. "What's wrong, Boss Shin? Did you cut my flesh?" Auntie Wang, seeing me dazed, asked curiously. "Ah, it's nothing," I replied awkwardly, trying to swallow as a crazy thought flashed through my mind. Could it be that the time I fell and hit my head on the car door frame while moving out of the Shin family home accidentally unblocked my meridians, granting me a superpower? That just by touching a cuticle nipper to someone's skin, I could see the most ridiculous secret or the biggest lie they were hiding? To test this, I cleared my throat, pretending to be absent-minded, and while meticulously removing dead skin, casually dropped a remark. "Say, Auntie Wang, the weather has been quite damp lately. Do your family's clothes and socks smell musty? Yesterday when I passed by your house, I saw Uncle Wang's hole-ridden woolen sock tossed in the corner of the bed, and the smell was quite strong. If you don't clean it up carefully, it'd be a waste if the 200 yuan secret stash you hid in there gets eaten by mold." The moment my nipper stopped, Auntie Wang's voice also cut off like an unplugged radio. The auntie's eyes went wide, her mouth hanging open wide enough to fit a duck egg. Her face went from rosy to pale, then turned as red as a ripe GAC fruit. She stammered, her hands trembling violently. "Why you, how did you know? Good heavens, when did you see that?" "This morning when I hid it, the doors and windows were completely shut tight." Seeing her panicked state, I had to bite my lower lip hard to keep from laughing out loud. Sure enough, this ability to see through cuticles was real. "Ah, well, I just made a random guess," I calmly patted the back of her hand, smiling with my eyes squeezed shut. "Rest assured, Auntie, my lips are sealed tight. About you hiding 200 yuan in Uncle Wang's stinky sock, I swear I won't let half a word leak out the door of this Crescent Moon salon." Hearing this, Auntie Wang was like a drowning person clutching at a straw. She immediately grasped my hand tightly, her eyes filled with gratitude mixed with fear. "Boss Shin, you truly are my savior. From now on, every morning, I'll save you a special shrimp and pork dumpling bowl. Consider it a hush fee, okay?" And so, from that day on, my Crescent Moon nail salon officially entered its most glorious golden age in this town. Although the income from painting nails and trimming cuticles couldn't compare to the tens of thousands of yuan in pocket money I got every month in the past, the joy it brought was truly irreplaceable by pure gold. Thanks to this miraculous superpower, my salon became the center of the universe, the top-secret intelligence hub of the entire old town. For example, bald Uncle Chen from the grocery store opposite us, who always thumped his chest claiming to be the god of alcohol, 1,000 cups without getting drunk. Yesterday, when he came to my salon to get his toenails clipped, the moment my nipper touched him, I clearly saw a scene of him sneaking half a glass of expensive white liquor into the money tree pot in the corner of his house while his drinking buddy wasn't looking. As a result, his money tree was withering day by day. When I whispered a gentle reminder that he should water it with plain water instead of Maotai liquor, Uncle Chen's face flushed red. He hastily stuffed 50 yuan into my hand and fled without daring to look back. Or take the mechanic at the end of the alley, with his bulging biceps and body covered in tattoos. You'd think he was a notorious gangster. Who would have guessed that when I was filing his oil-stained, pitch-black fingernails, I saw a video of him in the dead of night. This tough guy was wrapped in a quilt, hugging a Sailor Moon body pillow, sobbing with emotion while watching a magical girl anime. Every day I opened the shop, I was greeted with dozens of such hilarious secrets. I didn't use them for blackmail, I just occasionally dropped a light, teasing remark to get belly-aching laughs and countless free snacks from customers bribing me for my silence. My salted fish life passed so peacefully, comfortably, and happily that I almost completely forgot I ever bore the surname Shin. Until one late afternoon at the end of the month, the sky over Xinglong suddenly turned gray, and dark clouds rolled in to obscure the sun. An unseasonal downpour crashed down, pattering heavily against the corrugated iron awning of the Crescent Moon Nail Salon. The cold, damp air carried the chill of early autumn. I was yawning, curled up in a thin blanket on the guest sofa. I was about to take a nap when the wind chimes hanging above the door rang frantically. The glass door was pushed open forcefully, and a freezing gust of wind blew in, carrying a strong scent of luxury perfume that overpowered the smell of sulfur and nail polish in the salon. From outside in the rain, a large black umbrella was carefully opened by a bodyguard to provide cover. A young woman stepped inside. She wore a meticulously tailored pure white silk dress with a thin cardigan draped carelessly over her shoulders, and her feet were clad in sparkling crystal-embellished high heels without a single drop of rain on them. It was a fragile, beautiful face, so pure that just looking at her made people want to cherish and protect her. Her large round, misty eyes seemed covered in a thin layer of fog, and her small lips were slightly pursed, revealing an air of stubborn pride. It was Bai Wanru, the true heiress of the Shin family, the one who took my place to step into the glamorous world of the wealthy. Bai Wanru took off her large sunglasses, her gaze sweeping over the small, cramped, and somewhat messy space of the Crescent Moon Nail Salon with undisguised disdain. She frowned, shifting her gaze, and finally locked her sharp eyes on me, still curled up in a blanket on the sofa. The click-clack of her high heels striking the tiled floor beat an oppressive rhythm. Bai Wanru walked straight to the only manicure table in the shop, pulled a powerful black card from her platinum handbag, and slammed it onto the glass table, making a sharp, dry thud. She tilted her chin up and commanded in the coldest, most arrogant tone possible, "Shin Wanqing, give me the most expensive manicure in this rundown shop. Make sure you do it carefully. If you scratch even a single layer of my skin, you will get the hell out of Xinglong tomorrow." The atmosphere in the shop instantly sank. Even the sound of the rain pouring outside the awning couldn't drown out the gunpowder-laced tension between us. The confrontation that the entire high society had been gossiping about and anticipating for the past month had finally taken place in the most unexpected location, the Crescent Moon Nail Salon. I didn't even bother looking up at that luxurious black card, nor did I care about the prestigious heiress's threat to kick me out of Xinglong. I unhurriedly unrolled my blanket, set it aside, and slowly walked over to the manicurist's chair. I patted the opposite chair, my tone as calm as if I were receiving a regular customer. "Have a seat. Standing there too long will hurt your feet and ruin those tens of thousands of yuan shoes. My shop may be small, but the chairs definitely won't collapse, don't worry." Bai Wanru paused slightly. Perhaps she had prepared a script where I would be angry or humiliated and fight back, but my utterly oblivious calmness clearly disrupted her plans. She let out a cold snort and sat down in the opposite chair, haughtily placing her slender, fair hands on the red velvet armrest cushion. I put on my mask, picked up the nail file, and began to work. "Nice hands," I said, my voice steady and without a hint of sarcasm. Bai Wanru sneered, her voice full of condescension. "Good that you know. 18 years of upbringing by the Shin family truly makes a difference. The Shin family isn't a place you can reach for, nor is it a place you can return to. People like you only deserve to stay in this corner and inhale nail polish fumes for the rest of your life." I didn't reply, just gently held her hand. The tip of the metal file touched the dead skin around her nail. Instantly, a jolt of electricity sparked through my fingertips. Before my eyes, the space of the nail salon vanished, replaced by a massive, luxurious bedroom inside the Shin family villa, where only moonlight filtered through the window. Bai Wanru, who was sitting in front of me with such an ethereal and aristocratic demeanor, was completely covered under a quilt in that video. With both hands, she was grabbing tongue-scorching spicy grilled chicken feet, gnawing on them so eagerly that the sauce was smeared all over her mouth. She was gnawing on the chicken feet while using her phone to watch a cheesy romantic drama, occasionally pulling off a diamond-studded hairpin in frustration and throwing it hard onto the mattress. This dress is so tight it's killing me, I can't even breathe. Tomorrow I have to attend another banquet and play the perfect lady again, I'm so sick of it. I miss the old days in the countryside where I could freely eat snacks, laugh, and talk. Being an heiress now is like being a high-class prisoner. The video faded, and I returned to reality, my hand still holding Bai Wanru's. I suppressed a burst of laughter inside, trying to keep my face as calm as water. Miss Rowe, I spoke up, my voice low and full of implication. The spicy grilled chicken feet on East Street are really delicious, aren't they? Bai Wanru, who had her eyes closed in relaxation, jolted violently upon hearing my question, nearly hitting her head on the edge of the table. She snapped her eyes open and stared at me in shock. What did you say? I kept my head down, diligently filing her nails, and casually continued, I said the spicy grilled chicken feet on East Street are delicious. The spicy flavor, the crunchy skin, one bite and you're hooked. A young lady living in the lap of luxury like you probably hasn't ever tasted this earthly delicacy, right? What a pity. Every time you secretly eat them under the covers, it must be so hard to keep the sauce from staining your white silk dress. Bai Wanru's face turned pale, she looked at me as if she were looking at a monster. She pulled her hand back, frantically looked around, and then lowered her voice, hissing through gritted teeth. Who are you? How do you know? I am the owner of this nail salon. I raised my eyes and looked straight at her, my gaze as calm as a lake. I don't know if you're a real or fake heiress, and I don't care about that title either. But you came in here and immediately insulted my shop, and even demanded I get out of Xinglong. I work in the service industry, and the customer is God. But if God wants to make things difficult for me, I wouldn't mind revealing a few of God's adorable hobbies to the public. Bai Wanru looked at me, her initial arrogance vanishing without a trace. She trembled, and suddenly, the pent-up frustration she had held back for so long seemed to break like a dam. Her eyes, which always feigned purity, were now red. She slumped her shoulders, no longer sitting up straight like a statue. You're not going to tattle to those people in the Shin family, are you? Her voice was weak. Do I look that free? I shrugged, going back to doing her nails. I do your nails, I take your money. Why would I go report to anyone else? How you live, whether you eat chicken feet or abalone, has nothing to do with my rice bowl. Bai Wanru looked at me for a long time before letting out a very long sigh. The defensive wall between us seemed to have cracked wide open. I'm so tired, she said, her voice sounding like the sigh of a bird trapped in a cage. Every day I have to learn how to smile, how to walk, how to look down on others. And Gu Xingye just rambles on every day about boring business matters. He only sees my title as the Shin family's young lady. I seriously want to go out and eat grilled chicken feet so badly I'm going crazy. I smiled and took out a packet of spicy beef jerky from the drawer, which Bai Wanru had accidentally brought in her bag and hadn't dared to take out yet. Want some? I offered the packet to her. Bai Wanru looked at the snack, then at me. Without a word, she snatched it, tore open the bag, grabbed a handful, and stuffed it into her mouth. She ate it with absolute relish, tossing her prestigious heiress image completely out the window. This is so good, she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. See, we don't need to be enemies, I said leisurely while continuing to file her nails. Whenever you come here, just bring whatever you want to eat. If you want to relieve stress, curse all you want. I've got you covered. Hearing this, Bai Wanru suddenly burst out laughing. Her laugh was clear and unpretentious, completely unlike her forced acting in front of crowds. All right, Boss Shin. From now on, you are my good sister. If anyone dares to cause trouble in this shop, I'll have someone level the place. I shook my head and smiled helplessly. Let's hold off on using your power. Just be a normal customer and pay your bill in full, that's enough. In the small space of the nail salon, the rain continued to patter against the awning outside, but inside, the tension had been replaced by trivial gossip. We talked about hateful high heels, secret snacks, and how to dodge boring blind dates. For the first time in 18 years, I found someone I could absorb drama with without wearing a mask. Right as the conversation reached its climax, the wind chimes at the door rang frantically again. This time, it wasn't the click of slender heels but heavy, decisive footsteps. A man walked in. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit, but his hair was slightly disheveled, and his face was scrunched up as if he had just survived a life-or-death battle. Bai Wanru, who was mid-chew with a piece of her snack, immediately lowered her head upon seeing him. She shrank into the corner of the sofa, desperately trying to turn herself into thin air. I looked up at the new arrival, Jiang Yanji, the financial big boss of Xinglong City. In the business world, this man was likened to a blizzard, cold, ruthless, and never leaving a single loophole. But today, this great demon king was tightly wrapping a pure white handkerchief around the index finger of his left hand. He strode over to the counter, his deep voice carrying undisguised irritation. Where's the boss? I put down my nippers, looked at his tightly wrapped finger, and then at his face, which was contorted in either pain or annoyance, and asked, getting your nails done or seeking medical treatment? Jiang Yanji looked at me, his cold gaze sweeping over Bai Wanru cowering in the corner before landing back on his own finger. He gently removed the handkerchief, revealing an index finger with a torn hangnail that was bleeding slightly. The scratch was tiny, but to a perfectionist freak like him, it was probably akin to a fatal wound. Cut it off, he said, his tone sounding like he was barking an order at a subordinate. It's making me uncomfortable. This scratch ruins the composition of my hand. I looked at him, then at that pitiful finger. What a bizarre affliction. Sit down. I pointed to the empty chair. 50 yuan for a cuticle trim, not including health insurance for your soul. Jiang Yanji frowned but sat down anyway. He placed his hand on the velvet armrest, his eyes never leaving the scratch, as if he wanted to burn it off with his sharp gaze alone. I picked up the cuticle nipper and began my work. The moment the tip of the nipper touched his skin, another video popped into my mind. It wasn't some horrifying dark secret, but a scene inside a luxurious office. Jiang Yanji was meticulously arranging the pencils on his desk into a perfectly straight line, then using a protractor to adjust the tilt angle of his computer monitor. When an employee accidentally bumped into his desk and caused his hand to slip, he stared at that person with a murderous glare for a solid 5 minutes before kicking them out of the room. I held back my laughter so hard my internal organs hurt. So, this big boss who summoned the wind and rain on the outside was actually a pathologically obsessive control freak on the inside. What are you laughing at? Jiang Yanji felt the slight tremor in my hand and immediately looked up, glaring at me with eyes like daggers. Nothing, I replied, decisively snipping off the dead skin. I just think President Zhang's fingers are a lot like how you manage your company, both demand absolute perfection. Jiang Yanji froze slightly. He looked at me, and for the first time, his eyes lost their cold distance, replaced by a flash of surprise. You know me? News about the Jiang Corporation is all over the internet, who wouldn't know? I filed his nail to reshape it. But I only care about your nails. The scratch is gone, you can go back to your pencil arranging career now. Jiang Yanji looked at his perfectly treated hand, completely free of any dead skin, and his gaze softened. He stood up, pulled 50,000 yuan from his wallet, and placed it on the table. This is for the service. I looked at the thick stack of cash, then at him. President Jiang, I only charge 50 yuan. You don't need to show off. The balance, Jiang Yanji replied lightly, is a hush fee. I don't want others to know I came to this common nail salon. He turned to walk out the door, but before leaving, he glanced back at Bai Wanru, who was still hiding in the corner. Miss Bai, if you continue eating garlic and chili-smelling snacks in this shop, I will inform your father. Bai Wanru stiffened completely. Jiang Yanji turned his back and stepped out into the rain, his tall figure gradually disappearing beneath the black umbrella. I watched him leave, then turned back to a slack-jawed Bai Wanru. Looks like you've met your nemesis. Bai Wanru sulked. That's Jiang Yanji, the man my father constantly wants me to marry. He has mental problems, did you know that? I smiled, looking down at my hands that had just finished filing his nails, still retaining a trace of warmth from that special customer. He definitely has some problems. But at least his problems are much easier to handle than the Shen family's drama. The Crescent Moon Nail Salon returned to its usual quietness. The rain kept falling, but I knew my salted fish life had officially been disrupted from this moment on. Customers usually came to my shop to beautify themselves, to adorn their hands and make them more radiant. But that giant Buddha named Jiang Yanji came to my shop as if he were rushing to an orthopedic emergency room. Ever since that stormy afternoon, the notorious big boss of Xinglong's investment circle officially became a regular, or more accurately, an addict, of the Crescent Moon Nail Salon. Every Friday at exactly 5:30 p.m., a sleek black car would park squarely inside the lines, exactly 10 meters away from my shop. Jiang Yanji would walk in, bringing an oppressive aura that made even the loudly gossiping neighborhood aunties automatically shut their mouths and scurry home to cook. He would sit down in the familiar chair, place his slender hands on the velvet cushion, and glare at those tiny torn hangnails or nails that had grown just 1 millimeter too long with sheer hatred, as if they had just embezzled his company's slush fund. I, of course, welcomed him with open arms. It took less than 10 minutes to nip the dead skin and file his nails into a flawless, perfectly square shape. He would swipe his card, leave exactly 50,000 yuan, and depart. The money I earned from him alone was enough for me to close the shop and travel for a month. But out of professional dedication, I stayed stationed here to serve this eccentric god. However, in this life, taking money from a mega-capitalist is never that easy. By the third week, Jiang Yanji's obsessive-compulsive disorder began to expand beyond the scope of his 10 fingers. That day, after I finished treating his nails, he didn't stand up and leave immediately as usual. His eyes locked onto the 5-tier wooden shelf mounted on the wall, where I displayed hundreds of bottles of nail polish. By nature, I was a lazy salted fish. After finishing a customer's color, I'd conveniently shove the bottle into the nearest empty spot. The result was a plum-red bottle crammed among neon greens, while a gaudy gold glitter bottle leaned haphazardly against a matte black one. It was a colorful, chaotic mess reeking of abstract art. I saw Jiang Yanji's eyebrows start to twitch, his jaw clench, and his breathing grow noticeably heavier. He kept staring at the shelf, then at me, his eyes seemingly asking, "Living in this colorful pigsty, do you even sleep peacefully at night?" Xin Wanqing, he called my name, his deep, hoarse voice carrying extreme restraint. That lotus pink bottle on the 3rd tier, left corner, it is tilted 15 degrees from the edge of the shelf. I was chewing melon seeds and lazily replied, "Just let it be, President Jiang. Even if it's tilted 15 degrees, when painted on the nails, it's still lotus pink. It's not going to miraculously turn into dog poop brown." Jiang Yanji tightly shut his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, his tolerance had reached its absolute limit. He stood up abruptly, unbuttoned his suit jacket, and draped it neatly over the back of the chair. Then, he slowly rolled the sleeves of his crisp white dress shirt up to his elbows, revealing his firm forearms. "Get me a clean cloth," his voice hardened, carrying an undeniable, commanding authority. I blinked, casually grabbed a light pink waterproof apron with a confused duck printed on the chest, and tossed it to him along with a pack of antibacterial wet wipes. "Here's the cloth. If you're going to clean, put the apron on, lest you dirty your tens of thousands of yuan shirt." I giggled, teasing him, certain that this arrogant man would throw the duck apron in my face and storm out. But I was wrong. The power of OCD can truly bend all human dignity. Jiang Yanji looked at the pink apron, the corners of his mouth twitching slightly, but then he picked it up, slipped it over his head, and expertly tied the strings behind his back. And so, the notorious big boss, the man holding the economic lifeline of Xinglong City, was wearing a confused duck apron, standing solemnly in front of my nail polish shelf. He used the wet wipes to polish each bottle until it shone, then began organizing them. He didn't just place them randomly, he sorted them strictly according to the Pantone color chart, from light to dark tones, transitioning smoothly from warm to cool hues. The spacing between the bottles was measured purely by eye but was accurate to the millimeter. Right at that moment, Bai Wanru pushed the door open and walked in. She was holding a bag of brown sugar boba milk tea in one hand and a bag of piping hot roasted chestnuts in the other. Looking up to call me, Wanru instantly spotted the tall man in the pink apron diligently organizing the polished bottles. Wanru turned to stone on the spot, nearly dropping her bag of chestnuts. She took 2 steps back, checked the sign outside the door, and then peeked back into the shop. Wanqing. Wanru gulped, tiptoeing over to the sofa where I was sitting. She whispered as if afraid of a ghost, "Am I seeing things? Or have I been eating too much sugar lately and hallucinating?" That's Jiang Yanji, isn't it? Who else could it be? I took the milk tea from Wanru, loudly slurping through the straw. My polished shelf was an eyesore to him. Let him be. Just pretend our shop has a high-end, unpaid janitor today. Bring the chestnuts out here, let's eat them while they're hot. The two of us, one a salted fish nail salon owner, the other a prestigious heiress, sat carefree with our legs crossed on the sofa, munching on chestnuts while enjoying the spectacle of a billionaire doing chores. Jiang Yanji worked with extreme focus, completely ignoring our loud chewing. After wiping the shelf, he turned to organize the pile of magazines on the table into a perfect square block, then conveniently grabbed the mop and wiped away all the mud tracks left by customers from the rain. The cramped space of the Crescent Moon Nail Salon suddenly became so tidy and clean that it practically glowed. Wanru bit into a melon seed and muttered, "Good heavens, my father used to constantly force me to approach and suck up to him. If my old man saw him wearing a duck apron and mopping the floor like this, his blood pressure would skyrocket and he'd end up in the hospital. This just goes to show everyone has their secrets." I smiled warmly. If Wanru knew that Jiang Yanji strictly arranged colored pencils by color at his company, she'd probably laugh her belly button off. Just as Jiang Yanji was rinsing the mop in the small back restroom, the piercing roar of a sports car engine shattered the tranquility of the old street. A blindingly orange convertible slammed on its brakes right in front of the shop, taking up half the pedestrian sidewalk. The door opened, and Gu Xingye stepped out. He was dressed so flashily today that it made my eyes hurt, a pristine white suit and hair slicked back so heavily with gel that a fly would slip if it landed on it. In his arms, he held a bouquet of blood-red roses as big as a cartwheel. He pushed the door open and walked in, wearing an expression of deep, forgiving affection, like a savior descending to bestow grace. "Wanqing, I know you're playing hard to get, running away from home to attract my attention." Gu Xingye walked straight up to me, completely ignoring Bai Wanru huddled on the side. His voice was deep and warm, taking on that familiar manipulative tone. "My heart aches for you, do you know that? Look at this rundown nail salon. The chemical smell is overpowering, and the space is so cramped. How could a girl used to living in luxury like you endure serving others like this? Be a good girl, go admit your mistakes to the Shin family, and I will speak up for you. Even though you are no longer the Shin family's heiress, I can arrange for you to be Wanru's personal assistant. Serving her, you can still mingle in high society and earn a decent monthly salary, 1,000,000 times better than burying your face in people's toenails here." I nearly choked on a melon seed. What kind of material was this man's brain made of to spout such delusional, self-aggrandizing nonsense? Bai Wanru, sitting next to me, also choked. She stared wide-eyed at Gu Xingye and muttered, "Is your brain waterlogged? Who needs her to serve me? I'm the one serving her roasted chestnuts right now." At this, Gu Xingye finally glanced over, pretending he had just noticed Wanru's existence. He immediately changed his expression, putting on a smile as warm as the spring breeze, and lowered his voice. "Wanru, you're here too? I was planning to bring these flowers to the Shen family estate for you later. I didn't expect to run into you in this filthy place. You are a precious jewel, don't pay attention to low-class people, what if you catch their bad habits?" Saying that, Gu Xingye reached out to grab Wanru's hand. Disgusted, Wanru pulled her hand back, grabbed a napkin, and threw it at him. "Stay away from me. Filthy, your head. Everyone here is cleaner than your personality." Being rejected right in front of me made Gu Xingye feel he had lost face. His expression clearly showed his irritation. He was about to yell when suddenly, a rattling sound came from the restroom. Jiang Yanji had just finished rinsing the mop. Carrying a bucket of water in one hand and wringing a cleaning cloth with the other, he unhurriedly walked out. The confused duck apron was still obediently strapped to his chest, and his sleeves were rolled up high, revealing masculine veins. Gu Xingye spun around. He looked the apron-wearing, cleaning man up and down, and the corners of his lips immediately curled into a contemptuous sneer. "Wanqing, you are truly beyond saving." Gu Xingye shook his head in feigned pity. "Opening a rundown shop and you even hire this kind of sloppy, deaf-mute cleaner? Is this entire shop even worth as much as the shoes I'm wearing, that you need to hire help?" He took 2 steps forward, pulled a crisp 100 yuan note from his wallet, and arrogantly threw it straight onto the floor right at Jiang Yanji's feet. "Hey, you there." Gu Xingye tilted his chin, using the tone of someone ordering a servant. "Servant, get me a glass of water, I'm thirsty. Consider this 100 yuan note your tip, it's probably equal to a whole day's wage your boss pays you, right? Take it and buy some food. Look at how pathetic you are." The space inside the Crescent Moon Nail Salon suddenly fell into a terrifying silence. The rhythmic whirring of the ceiling fan above seemed to freeze, and the room temperature dropped sharply, becoming so chilling that Wanru and I instinctively huddled closer together, clutching the bag of chestnuts. The man holding the water bucket paused his steps. He slowly raised his head. His eyes, which were usually calm and indifferent, were now covered in a layer of piercing frost, carrying the oppressive, murderous aura of someone accustomed to standing above thousands. Jiang Yanji dropped the bucket to the floor. The crisp 100 yuan note lay on the tiled floor, resting pitifully right next to the tip of his custom-made Italian suede shoes. Gu Xingye maintained his chin-tilted posture, arrogantly waiting for this duck apron-wearing cleaner to bow down, pick up the money, and obediently fetch him water. Jiang Yanji slightly narrowed his eyes. His deep, pitch-black gaze swept over the banknote on the ground and then slowly moved up to Gu Xingye's smug face. The corners of his lips curved up slightly, forming a freezing, bone-chilling smirk. Bai Wanru, sitting next to me, clearly felt this murderous aura too. She was so scared she stopped chewing, her face pale, her hands gripping the edge of the sofa. Wanru knew exactly who Jiang Yanji was, and she knew even better how ruthless his tactics in the business world could be. Seeing Gu Xingye dare to throw a tip to insult this living king of hell, she couldn't hold back and was about to jump up and curse at him. But I was faster. I reached out and firmly pressed down on Wanru's shoulder, pinning her back into the sofa cushion. I shot her a look signaling her to stay quiet and enjoy the show. Then, I stood up, flashing a smile as bright as the summer sun, and spoke in a tone so sweet it gave even me goosebumps. "Oh my, young Master Gu is truly too generous, visiting my tiny shop and giving such a handsome tip. It really makes one feel bashful. Come, come, why are you standing there tiring your legs? Quickly, sit in this VIP chair. To repay your kindness, today I will personally take care of your nails, consider it a special customer appreciation gift." Hearing my sweet words, Gu Xingye thought I had been subdued by his ostentatiousness and started regretting leaving the Shen family. His face showed clear smugness as he swaggered over to the guest manicure chair. Before sitting down, he didn't forget to flick the tails of his pristine white suit jacket to the sides with a demeanor he deemed extremely stylish. That's more like it, Wanxing. Wouldn't it have been better if you knew your place sooner? Gu Xingye rested his hand on the velvet cushion, sighing with a superior air. I told you, as long as you're obedient, I, Gu Xingye, won't let you suffer any grievances. I smiled brightly, pulling up a chair to sit opposite him. My mask was already on, and the shiny stainless steel cuticle nipper rested obediently in my hand. Yes, I know young Master Gu loves me the most. Come, let me trim the dead skin around your nails. You've been so busy with big business lately, your hands have gotten all rough. As soon as the words fell, I gently placed the tip of the nippers on the rough cuticle at the corner of his thumb. Zap! A familiar electric current traveled straight from the tip of the nippers to my brain. The nail salon scene vanished, replaced by a highly spectacular video, as crisp as watching a 4K movie. In the video, there was no arrogant wealthy young master, but Gu Xingye wearing a disheveled pajama set, his hair messy, kneeling and crying pitifully in a smoke-filled office. Opposite him was a fat, heavily tattooed man with his feet propped up on the desk. Boss, please give me one more week. The Gu Corporation is really strapped for cash. The South Zone project just got frozen, and the bank refuses to disburse funds. Trust me, as long as I can sweet-talk the Shen family's heiress, I will repay this 30 million yuan debt in full, both principal and interest. Gu Xingye in the video kowtowed while bawling. The video transitioned. This time, Gu Xingye was standing in front of a luxury car rental shop on East Street, signing for the deposit on a bright orange convertible sports car. Next, he turned into a dark, narrow alley to buy a fake diamond-encrusted Richard Mille watch from a street vendor for less than 500 yuan. The vendor even reminded him, this is top-tier grade A goods. If it rains, cover it up, or if water gets in, the hands will stop moving completely. Finally, the video stopped at the image of Gu Xingye standing in front of a public restroom mirror. He was carefully applying hairspray, pulling the white suit out of a plastic bag to put it on, and meticulously hiding the 200 yuan cardboard price tag inside the collar so he could easily return it for a refund later. The video ended, and I blinked, returning to reality. The nippers in my hand were still resting on the corner of his nail. I had to use all my life strength to bite my lower lip and keep from bursting into laughter. This man parading around with his nose in the air right in front of me was unexpectedly an empty barrel making a pathetically loud noise. What's wrong? Do it carefully, don't cut my flesh, Gu Xingye frowned and reminded me when he saw me daze off. I calmly put the nippers down, took off my mask, crossed my legs, and looked straight at his heavily foundation-caked face. Say, young Master Gu, I propped my chin up, my tone feigning absolute innocence. How much did you buy that watch on your wrist for? With so many diamonds, it must be a limited edition, right? Hearing my question hit his favorite accessory, Gu Xingye immediately puffed out his chest, raising his wrist to show off. Of course, a Richard Mille commemorative edition, only 10 in the world. I just flew to Switzerland to pick it up last week. It costs around 300,000 casually. Why, do you like it? If you're good, I'll gift you one for your birthday. Bai Wanru, sitting in the back, pursed her lips in disdain. I let out an O of admiration, leaning closer to his wrist, pretending to examine it with a luxurious gaze. But young Master Gu, does this 300,000 yuan Swiss watch have a waterproof feature? Because I see the glass inside is fogging up a bit. How strange. Why is the second hand ticking backward? Could this be new time-reversing technology to remind the wearer of their youth? Gu Xingye's face suddenly stiffened. He hastily pulled his hand back, hiding his wrist behind his back, stammering, What do you know? This is an exclusive mechanical design, you can't understand it with the naked eye. I nodded as if I understood, but reached for a wet wipe, smiling as I continued, I see. You upper-class folks really have unique designs. Just like the suit you're wearing, an Italian handcrafted designer brand, right? But I'm wondering, is it a trend in Italy nowadays to leave the 200 yuan cardboard price tag dangling at the back of the collar? Is it to make it easier to return it to the shop later for a refund? Or is it intentionally creating a highlight for the outfit? My words were like a bomb detonating in the middle of the nail salon. Bai Wanru couldn't hold it in anymore. She stared at the back collar of Gu Xingye's suit and, sure enough, saw a piece of white paper sticking out. Wanru clutched her stomach, falling back onto the sofa, roaring with laughter until tears streamed down her face. Gu Xingye's face went from pale to bright red, then turned dark purple like a half-boiled eggplant. The surging humiliation and embarrassment made him lose all his fake, dignified demeanor. He stood up furiously, took a step back, and pointed his finger straight at my face, his voice shrill from losing his temper. Shin Wanqing, you dare insult me? You think just because you left the Shin family, this rundown shop can survive in Xinglong? Let me tell you, with just one phone call from me, your place will be sealed off tomorrow. You really don't know what's good for you. Enraged, Gu Xingye raised his hand to smash the things on my manicure table to vent his anger. But before his hand could land, a resounding smack cut through the air. The soaking wet cotton cleaning cloth flew from the hands of the man in the duck apron in a perfect parabola, slapping Gu Xingye right in the middle of his face. Dirty water from the cloth splashed everywhere, soaking half of his slicked back, gelled hair and leaving a long dirty streak on his pristine white suit. Gu Xingye stumbled backward, startled and panicked, wiping his face. He glared at the cleaner, intending to scream and curse, but the moment he met the man's gaze, his words choked in his throat. Jiang Yanji slowly walked over, the pink apron on his body not diminishing his oppressive aura in the slightest. He stopped exactly 2 steps away from Gu Xingye, using a gaze as if looking at a pile of garbage to evaluate the trembling man before him. The police station is 500 meters away, or get out of this shop immediately. Jiang Yanji's voice was deep, as cold as millennial ice, every word carrying the weight of 1,000 pounds. Or you can go in there and clearly explain where the Gu Corporation's 30 million yuan loan vanished to yesterday afternoon. What do you say, young Master Gu? Gu Xingye's legs turned to jelly. If being exposed by me earlier was a humiliation, then hearing this cleaner fluently recite his company's vital life and death secret swallowed him in absolute terror. Gu Xingye's eyes widened, staring at Jiang Yanji's cold face, finally vaguely realizing who the terrifying figure he had just thrown a 100 yuan tip at really was. Not daring to utter a single word, nor daring to look back, Gu Xingye clutched his face dripping with dirty mop water, lowered his head, and bolted out of the shop. He jumped into his rented convertible sports car, slamming on the gas to flee for his life as if a ghost were chasing him, completely forgetting the giant bouquet of roses rolling around on the tiled floor. Wanru, sitting on the sofa, laughed so hard she was out of breath. Wiping her tears, she said, "Oh my God, I'm dying of laughter. The 200 yuan price tag, the watch running backward. Gu Xingye, he's a born comedian. Next time he dares show his face at the Shin family to propose, I'll buy that mop bucket as a betrothal gift." Saying that, she picked up her platinum bag, giggled, and waved goodbye to me. Well, I'm heading back. The show was very satisfying today. I'll bring more snacks tomorrow. Thank you, Boss Shin, and thank you, handsome cleaner. Wanru swiftly slipped away, returning the quiet atmosphere to the nail salon. I sat with my chin propped in my hands, looking at Jiang Yanji. The notorious big boss who had just scared someone out of their wits was now unhurriedly taking off the confused duck apron, folding it into a perfect square, and placing it neatly on the table. After that, he pulled out a wet wipe and slowly cleaned each of his fingers. The atmosphere in the shop was no longer terrifyingly cold, but instead filled with a wonderfully awkward tension. Jiang Yanji threw the wet wipe into the trash can, turned around, and looked at me. I was astonished to discover that the tips of the ears of this perpetually cold and arrogant man were actually flushing a suspicious shade of red. He coughed lightly to break the silence, then tapped his index finger twice on the transparent glass table, his tone a bit unnatural. About that. I just mopped the floor, organized the polished shelf, and even chased away a customer for you. Jiang Yanji's lips twitched slightly. His eyes showed a hint of embarrassment, but he tried to maintain a serious face. How much should all these items add to my monthly manicure package? Hearing this debt-collecting yet bashful question from the infamous big boss, I couldn't hold back a burst of laughter. Propping my chin up, I blinked at his pink-tinged ears and replied with absolute solemnity. President Jiang, your salary is calculated by the second. Even if I sold this tiny nail salon, I probably wouldn't be able to afford your cleaning and security service fees. How about this, we gradually deduct it from your monthly cuticle cleaning package, what do you say? Jiang Yanji cleared his throat, intentionally averting his gaze, and gave a very slight nod. Acceptable. Just make sure you keep the accounting books properly. Saying that, he turned and walked straight out to the luxurious black car parked by the road. His back was straight and his strides decisive, but if one looked closely, his pace was slightly more hurried than usual. I leaned against the door, watching his car disappear into the bustling crowd of the old street, the corners of my mouth subconsciously curling up. Rumors about the Gu Corporation facing an industry ban, their projects freezing, and teetering on the edge of bankruptcy spread throughout Xinglong City overnight. The wealthy madams, who had too much free time on their hands, began stringing the events together. They rumored that Gu Xingye's downfall was because he offended a hidden master at the Crescent Moon Nail Salon. Word went around that the shabby little shop on the corner of the old street possessed tremendous wealth-bringing feng shui, could ward off mistresses, and even dispel disasters. As a result, less than 3 days later, my glass door was nearly pushed off its hinges by the endless stream of customers. They were all prestigious ladies and socialites carrying designer bags and smelling heavily of expensive perfume, lining up to get their nails done. They had absolutely no idea that the wealth-bringing feng shui they worshipped was actually just my ruthless mouth backed by my secret-seeing superpower. My nail salon was inadvertently upgraded into the underground secret exchange of high society. On Wednesday morning, Madame Li, the wife of a real estate tycoon, walked into the shop. She sat down, scrutinized my nail file with a critical eye, and sneered, "Miss Shin, your background wasn't too bad. Why are you resigning yourself to this lowly profession? Touching so many people's hands and feet, don't you find it dirty? Do it carefully, my skin is very sensitive." I maintained a perfect, standard smile. Yes, of course. I took her diamond ring-laden hand. The moment the cuticle nippers touched her, a secret video instantly played in my head. It turned out this madam, who always thumped her chest boasting of her generosity, had sneaked into a bustling black market yesterday afternoon. She haggled fiercely to buy a fake Hermes bag for a dirt-cheap price, then brought it home, boxed it up nicely, and formally gifted it to her newlywed daughter-in-law, not forgetting to brag that it was a limited edition she painstakingly ordered from France. I leisurely filed the edges of her nails smooth, leaned in close, and whispered just loud enough for the two of us to hear, "Madame Li, the grade A fake Hermes bags at the night market are made quite exquisitely these days, aren't they? But the zipper seems a bit stiff. Did your daughter-in-law complain when she used the gift?" Madame Li, who had her eyes closed and chin tilted up, jolted violently, her eyes rolling back as if she had seen a ghost. She frantically pulled her hand back, looking around to see if anyone had heard, cold sweat drenching her forehead. Before leaving, she didn't dare utter another word about my shop being lowly. Instead, she respectfully stuffed a thick stack of cash into my hand, choking out, "Miss Shin, your skills are superb, and you know everything. Please keep your mouth shut for me." By the afternoon, Madame Chen brought her group of friends to get their nails done, taking the opportunity to brag about her precious son studying for his master's degree in the UK. She loudly recounted how hard her son studied, locking himself in the library day and night to research his thesis, bringing glory to the Chen family. While applying a coat of cuticle oil to her nails, I watched a video of her precious son throwing money around like trash, booking an entire nightclub in London, and dancing crazily next to hot girls. I clicked my tongue and let out a long sigh. Madam, you should buy some FOT root or hair growth medicine to send to him. Your son is so busy dancing at the club every night, staying up till dawn instead of worrying about his thesis. He's losing a lot of hair lately, his forehead is completely shiny. It'd be a pity if he had to wear a wig by the time he gets his master's degree. Madam Chen, who was mid-boast, fell dead silent. She whipped out her phone to video call her son immediately to verify the balding forehead, then frantically paid her bill and sprinted to her car. Just like that, without needing to scream or curse, just a few casual remarks hitting their exact pressure points left the usually arrogant and bossy crowd completely crushed by me. In the end, they all meekly handed over their money in exchange for the nail salon boss's silence. The balance on my card skyrocketed. But what made me happiest was that every day I got my fill of the ridiculous drama of this wealthy circle. However, my becoming too busy led to a very serious consequence. It disrupted Jiang Yanji's schedule. For several weeks in a row, when 5 p.m. rolled around and Jiang Yanji appeared, my shop was still packed with madams waiting for manicures and gossip. The loud chattering and the smell of perfume mixed with nail polish pushed the big boss's OCD to its absolute peak. Without saying a word, he would lean against the door frame, watching me busily chatting and laughing with customers, his eyebrows knitted tightly into a straight line. After waiting exactly 15 minutes to no avail, he would turn and leave, carrying an aura of frost that made everyone shiver. I was so busy I was seeing stars, so I had no mind to coax that difficult VIP customer. Then, on a Friday evening, just as I saw the last customer out and prepared to flip the closed sign, a tall, dark figure loomed over me. Jiang Yanji walked into the shop. He didn't bring roses or sparkling diamond jewelry like the domineering CEOs in novels usually do to coax women. Instead, he unhurriedly placed a document clamped in a high-end leather folder onto my glass table. What's this? An hourly cleaning contract? I curiously opened the folder. What met my eyes were not dry legal terms, but an incredibly sharp, color-printed Excel spreadsheet. The columns and rows were aligned with absolute perfection. The table borders used a deep blue color code, the fonts were perfectly uniform, and not a single millimeter was out of place. The contents listed all of Jiang Yanji's personal assets. From shares in the Jiang Corporation, venture capital funds, and real estate chains spanning the country, to vintage watch collections and supercars. On the very last row of the Excel sheet, the total net worth entry was an unimaginable number with a string of zeros so long it made my eyes tired just counting them. I drew in a sharp breath of cold air and looked up at the man standing with his hands behind his back, his expression utterly calm. President Jiang, why did you bring this for me to see? Are you trying to threaten me with the power of capitalism? Or do you want to prove you are rich enough to crush this nail salon with money? Jiang Yanji pulled out a chair and sat opposite me. He reached out, lightly tapping his index finger on the smooth Excel sheet, his profound gaze boring deep into mine. Shen Wanqing, his voice was deep and warm, carrying an undisguised sense of possessiveness. I am buying out your time. I froze. Huh? Look at this number, he continued slowly. It is enough to compensate for the entire revenue you'd get from that crowd of noisy, gossiping women for the next 100 years. From now on, I am the only VIP customer allowed to enter this shop after 6 p.m. The shop must be closed, no one is allowed to make noise, and no one is allowed to take my seat. He paused slightly, the familiar red flush appearing on the tips of his ears again, but his gaze remained steady. I don't like it when you neglect my manicure schedule to gossip with others, and I especially don't like seeing you laughing and chatting happily with irrelevant people. Your evening time, I'm booking all of it. The emotional shift of this man truly made one not know whether to laugh or cry. Pulling out a billionaire's fortune to make an Excel spreadsheet just to fight for a 6 p.m. manicure slot. The unreasonableness and dominance, mixed with a bit of childishness brought about by his OCD, suddenly made my lazy salted fish heart skip a beat. The unconditional indulgence and protection hidden behind that rigid shell was both hilarious and meltingly sweet. I pursed my lips to suppress the ticklish feeling in my chest, unhurriedly closing the folder. All right then, since the big boss has thrown his money around, I will gladly accept. Starting tomorrow, the shop closes at 6 p.m., exclusively reserved for President Jiang to come and clean. That peaceful, somewhat ambiguous, and sweet time of ours hadn't lasted for long before huge trouble knocked on our door. One morning, Bai Wanru aggressively pushed open the shop door, slapping a sparkling gold-plated invitation card onto the table. Look at what tricks this aristocratic family is playing now. Wanru put her hands on her hips, panting with anger. I picked up the card, which featured ostentatiously curly font, Shin Corporation Anniversary Gala. Under the recipient section, my name, Shin Wanqing, was clearly written. The Shin family deliberately sent an invitation to me, a fake daughter who had been kicked out of the house. Their purpose was nothing else but to make me witness their glory and to humiliate me in front of Xinglong's high society, affirming that without the Shin family, I was nothing but a pile of mud. I'm throwing this in the trash and going back to sleep, I yawned, about to toss the card. No way. Wanru snatched the card back, grabbing my hand and pulling me. We have to go. You put on your best clothes for me, we'll go there and eat their buffet dry. My parents are planning to use this banquet to officially introduce me as the sole heir, and conveniently humiliate you to elevate my value. I'm so sick of them. Let's go watch them put on a play. That evening, under Wanru's coercion, I put on a simple but exquisitely tailored plain black silk dress, pinned my hair up neatly, and leisurely walked into the grand banquet hall of the most expensive five-star hotel in Xinglong. My appearance immediately attracted countless scrutinizing gazes, and whispers echoed from all corners of the room. Madame Shin, standing on the high podium, saw me and smirked, her eyes filled with contempt. I didn't care in the slightest, walking straight to the food area to grab a plate of macarons and leisurely enjoy them. Right as the banquet reached its climax, with the clinking of wine glasses blending with the melodious symphony music, a piercing scream suddenly tore through the atmosphere. My ring! Where is my ruby ring? The person who had just screamed was Madame Wang, the wife of the director of Xinglong's largest bank. A person with the power to summon the wind and rain, someone even the Shin family had to respect and yield to. She frantically felt her empty hand, her face drained of all color. The ruby ring worth billions, the Wang family's heirloom, had vanished right in the middle of the banquet hall. Security guards immediately locked down all exits. The music was abruptly cut off, and an atmosphere of panic ensued. While everyone was in shock, a waiter timidly stepped out, trembling as he pointed straight at me standing in the corner eating cake. Earlier, I saw Miss Shin sneaking around the ladies' coat check area, and after that, she kept clutching her small handbag. Her behavior was very suspicious. Hundreds of eyes immediately locked onto me like sharp knives. Madame Shin led the crowd, walking up to me, her voice echoing through the banquet hall carrying fake disappointment, sighing as if she were heartbroken. Wanqing, Mom knows that since you left the house, life has been tough. Opening that tiny nail salon probably doesn't make much money. If you're short on cash, just ask Mom. Why did you have to resort to petty theft and humiliate the Shin family's reputation in front of so many guests? Every word she uttered sounded forgiving, but in reality, they were invisible knives meant to pin me to the pillar of shame. The surrounding crowd began to whisper, contemptuous and mocking glares continuously shooting toward my corner. I unhurriedly stuffed the remaining half of the strawberry macaron into my mouth, chewed and swallowed slowly, then pulled out a tissue and meticulously wiped the crumbs off my fingertips. After finishing, I looked up, smiling radiantly. You haven't searched me or checked the security cameras, yet you're rushing to convict me. This framing trick hasn't been used in TV dramas since 2010, ladies and gentlemen. As a wealthy madam, you should at least update your trends. You dare speak so insolently. Madame Wang was so furious her eyes were bloodshot. She stomped her high heels on the floor, aggressively rushing towards me, raising her arm covered in sparkling gold bracelets to slap my face hard. Grab her. Search her cheap bag. This little wench definitely hid my ring in there. I stood completely still. Right as Madame Wang's hand was about to touch my cheek, I reached out as quick as lightning and grabbed her wrist. Calm down, madam. Be careful not to rupture a blood vessel in your brain. I gently held her hand tight, flipped it over, and intentionally pressed my thumb hard against the rough cuticle on her thumb. Let me read your palm, madam, and while I'm at it, let's see where that precious ring grew legs and ran off to. The moment our cuticles touched, the familiar electric current sparked through my brain. The grand banquet hall scene instantly vanished, replaced by a highly vivid video. I saw Madame Wang sitting in the VIP room of a notorious underground casino in Macau. Her face was deathly pale, sweat drenching her forehead as she watched all her chips being swept away by the dealer. The tattooed casino boss threw a debt note on the table, coldly giving her 3 days to pay off the massive sum, otherwise, he would expose everything to her bank director husband. The video transitioned extremely fast. It was still Madame Wang, but the setting was the secluded hallway near the restroom of today's banquet hall. She looked around sneakily and took the ruby ring off her finger. Right at that moment, a waiter in uniform, busy carrying a tray of wine glasses, walked past. She pretended to trip, bumped into the waiter, and taking advantage of the chaos, swiftly slipped the ruby ring deep into the front apron pocket of that waiter. When the waiter looked up and apologized profusely, I almost burst out laughing. It was no stranger, it was none other than young Master Gu Xingya, who had just been debt collected into bankruptcy and now had to work part-time as a waiter to make a living. Returning to reality, I let go of Madame Wang's hand, taking half a step back to avoid the overwhelming smell of perfume radiating from her. The entire banquet hall was still holding its breath, waiting for me to be exposed. Bai Wanru, standing not far away, anxiously wanted to rush up and fight the security guards to protect me. I lifted my chin, signaling her to stay calm. Madame Wang, I truly admire your acting skills. I put both hands in my coat pockets, leisurely raising my voice to a volume just loud enough for everyone in the hall to hear clearly. But regarding that gambling debt you lost in Macau last week, you were planning to use the insurance payout from this ruby ring to cover it up, weren't you? Madame Wang's face instantly went from flushed red to as white as a sheet of paper. She took a step back, her whole body trembling, stammering incoherently. What nonsense are you sprouting? Slander, this is slander. I lazily shrugged, not bothering to argue with her. My gaze swept through the crowd and stopped at the dark corner near the red velvet curtains, where a waiter was huddled, trembling, trying to hide a familiar face. Gu Xingya, what are you doing hiding in that corner? Come out here and let everyone admire you. I pointed toward the corner of the room. Take out what's in the left pocket of your apron and see what kind of toy this noble madam just rewarded you with. All eyes immediately followed the direction of my finger. Gu Xingya, suddenly called out, was so terrified that he dropped his tray, sending glasses shattering across the floor. Wearing a cheap waiter's uniform, his face deathly pale, he trembling reached into the front pocket of his apron. When he pulled his hand out, under the brilliant crystal chandeliers of the banquet hall, the blood-red ruby ring flashed blindingly, lying quietly in the sweaty palm of the fallen young master. The entire hall erupted in gasps of astonishment. Whispers exploded like a broken beehive. The gazes that were aimed at me with contempt just moments ago all simultaneously shifted to Madame Wang, who stood rooted to the spot. Madame Shen froze, the smug smile on her lips vanishing, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Gu Xingye hurriedly threw the ring onto the ground like a burning hot coal, wailing pitifully, I didn't steal it. I swear I don't know why it was in my pocket. She bumped into me earlier, she must have secretly slipped it in. The truth was laid bare. A clumsy framing attempt to claim insurance money while using someone else to exact personal revenge had been completely exposed. Madame Wang's legs gave out, and she collapsed onto the floor, covering her face with her hands, not daring to look at anyone. Just as the hall descended into its most chaotic and noisy state, the solid mahogany main doors of the banquet hall suddenly burst open. There was no announcement, no introductory music, but an oppressive, freezing aura swept in from the outside, causing everyone to instinctively fall completely silent. The crowd automatically parted to the sides like the parting of the sea, making a wide path in the middle. Jiang Yanji had arrived. He wore a pure black suit, meticulously tailored down to every stitch, without a single wrinkle. A cold, arrogant, and kingly aura emanated from his steady strides. He didn't bother to spare a single glance for the kneeling and bowing crowd around him. His deep eyes were locked solely on one person, the one standing in the corner with her hands in her pockets, leisurely enjoying the show. Me. He walked up to me and stopped. In the moment when everyone was holding their breath, waiting for a domineering line like "She is my woman," this notorious big boss did something no one could have anticipated. He unhurriedly reached into his suit pocket and pulled out a white silk handkerchief. It was folded into a perfect square, its edges aligning without a millimeter of deviation. Then, he leaned down slightly and used that handkerchief to gently wipe away a tiny macaron crumb lingering at the corner of my mouth. "You took too long," his voice was deep and warm, carrying a hint of reproach mixed with impatience. "The teal polish bottle on the second shelf in the shop is misaligned." I couldn't stand looking at it. "Let's go home." I burst out laughing and nodded vigorously. "Let's go. I've inhaled enough drama here, the air is getting polluted." Saying that, I walked right beside him. As we turned our backs, old Master Shin, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke up in a panic. His voice trembled, carrying obvious flattery. "President Jiang, please wait. Today was just a misunderstanding." Jiang Yanji paused slightly. He didn't turn his head, only tilting his face slightly, leaving behind a cold yet terrifyingly destructive sentence. "Whether it's a misunderstanding or not, I don't care. But whoever wasted her time, tomorrow, I will send an audit team to their company." The entire banquet hall plunged into a deathly silence. Old Master Shin staggered back a few steps, nearly collapsing. Everyone understood clearly that Jiang Yanji never joked. All of Xinglong City would be wide awake tonight, horrified to realize that the lowly nail salon owner they had just teamed up to humiliate was actually the one and only exception, the precious treasure cradled in the hands of the most powerful great demon king. The following spring, the Crescent Moon Nail Salon had expanded to 3 times its original size, redecorated with warm oak wood and soft yellow string lights. After that terrifying banquet night, Bai Wanru officially staged a revolution. She renounced her inheritance rights, declared a clean break from the Shin family's hypocritical lifestyle, and brought all her savings to slam on my table, demanding to become a business partner. Now, the former true heiress had become the second little boss of the nail salon, happily mixing boba tea, chewing on spicy rice paper salad, and chatting about everything under the sun with the customers every day. As for me, I remained the salted fish Shin Wanching, leisurely enjoying life. The ability to see through cuticles was still there, helping me maintain my status as the ultimate gossip boss of Xinglong's old town. At exactly 6 p.m., the wind chimes at the door jingled. The last customers said their goodbyes and left. Wanru also quickly grabbed her bag and slipped away for a date with an architect from the next street over. I lazily stretched, walked over to pull down the rolling door, and flipped the closed sign outward. Inside the shop, Jiang Yanji had already consciously rolled the sleeves of his white dress shirt up to his elbows. He no longer wore the terrifying expression he had on the battlefield of business, but was incredibly serious, meticulously wiping down every bottle of nail polish and arranging them according to the most perfect color gradient. After cleaning the shelves, he pulled out the shop's ledger, diligently calculating and balancing the books accurately down to the very last decimal. I walked closer, wrapping my arms around his waist from behind, resting my chin on his broad shoulders, and giggled. President Jiang, a dignified billionaire coming to my shop every day to work as an accountant and cleaner like this. Don't you feel it's a waste of your talents? He paused his pen, reached back to gently pat my hair, his deep voice so tender it made my heart melt. It's not a waste. Out there, I manage tens of thousands of people, but back here, managing these nail polishes for you is enough. I stood on my tiptoes and placed a light kiss on his ear, which was just beginning to flush red. People always desperately yearn to squeeze into high society, spending their entire youth trading for designer bags, luxurious banquets, and fake praises. They are afraid of poverty, afraid of being lowly, afraid of being left behind. But I had learned how to lie flat. Lying flat isn't about giving up, it's about refusing to live according to other people's expectations and choosing a peaceful little corner for yourself. A person's nobility doesn't lie in their surname, or how many zeros are in their bank account. True happiness is the freedom to live true to your own messy, authentic self. Having a little job you love, having a best friend willing to share a bag of spicy beef jerky, and having a man who, despite carrying countless rigid principles, is still willing to break every rule just for you. Life is short. Being able to peacefully lie flat next to those who love you unconditionally, that is the truest, most authentic wealthy mansion in the human world. The end.